crank it.
Affirmative.
Gunner, scan for targets.
Affirmative.
Driver, move out.
Hey, R1 here. Welcome to the Virtual Realms YouTube channel. Today we're going to take a look at the Armored Warfare focus test that I recently was participating in. It's the second one that I was invited to. I believe they've had 3 overall. Now I'm not sure if they're going to have any more focus tests or not. They might, but you'll notice at the bottom of the screen it already says that this is a beta build, and that's not quite correct. In fact, I'm not entirely sure that this game is going to go through the normal procedure of a closed beta and then an open beta before release. There have been rumors that they may jump straight to a early access model instead, which is good because that means that you will get to play it even sooner than you would have otherwise.
Target locked. Hit their wheels. Target's gone.
Well, whichever way it goes, keep this firmly in mind as you watch this video. Alpha build. Things in this build are very, very likely to change.
Target locked. Direct hit. Target's gone.
This time around, we had 38 vehicles across 5 classes to get familiar with, including artillery and a variety of premium vehicles that were unlocked so that we could take them out for a spin on one of the 3 updated or newly released maps: Ghost Field, Cold Strike, and the new map, Port Storm. Well, as I was playing through it this time around, I noticed that there had been several improvements made to the interface, to the sound, to the matchmaker. Although the matchmaker still had a rough time with such a small number of players to work with. I only saw 200 or 300 players in this focus test at any given time, and frankly, that situation would give any matchmaking system fits. Still, we were able to get into matches in a timely fashion, and the matchups were reasonable. However, well, perhaps because of the limited number of testers and the sometimes over-tiering that would happen, maybe it's because of that I came to appreciate the thought that has gone into the balancing of the vehicles in regards to between the different tiers. Once you get a handle on how to fight your vehicle, you can take on significantly tougher opponents and still be dangerous. And even lightly armed AFVs, or armored fighting vehicles, can slip through to take out artillery or capture a base, or simply spot and designate targets, which will then take full damage from every shot that hits them. Suffice to say, I never really felt like I couldn't make a significant impact on the match, and very rarely did I feel that I couldn't do anything at all to a particular tank that I was up against. And since we're on the subject of AFVs, one thing that I thought was quite clever in regards to the changes that have been made to them this time around, now they can get one of 2 sets of bonus abilities. AFVs that are dedicated to reconnaissance get a spotting bonus. If instead they have a large troop carrying capacity, they get a significant bonus to how quickly they can capture a base, which really makes a lot of sense if you think about it. AFVs with a large troop carrying capacity are designed to get the fighting personnel quickly to the deployment zone without fear of small arms fire, and then cover them while they unload and secure the area. So it makes perfect sense that a vehicle designed to carry troops in to secure an area should get a bonus to that ability. One thing that we're going to talk about that has become more and more apparent to me as being unique about Armored Warfare is the progression tree. If we look at the dealers, you'll notice while in most games you will have certain choices that you can make. You could follow a particular tree. It may branch a little bit here and there, but in general you make your choice and you follow it as far up the tree as you care to go. However, in Armored Warfare you can progress in a number of different ways. For example, look at this. We're looking at Shishkin right now. I'm playing the Scorpion for the moment because I want to increase certain things with this rather than the higher tiered AMX 10P. I'm just about to unlock the T62. I have to earn a number of reputation points with the Scorpion before I can unlock this. However, it is entirely possible that I would unlock another vehicle first, like I've already unlocked this AMX 10P, which had an entirely different set of prerequisites. The Sheridan is based on damage that I have done at close range. Now, it's probably going to take me a little longer to get to that. Tactical artillery is simply based on how many battles I have fought. Technically, I could end up unlocking this Tier 4 artillery piece before I unlock this. It all depends on how well I do in the various matches that I enter into. This I unlocked. I hadn't even intended to try for this vehicle, but I unlocked it because of its prerequisites, and I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but you could end up progressing a lot faster down these various branches due to how you play and what your play style is. Your progression could go in completely unexpected directions, and you could turn around and find, as I did, that you've unlocked an interesting vehicle without even realizing it because you did particularly well in a certain area. I'm going to play out a few matches here, and I think I'll unlock the T62 first, but I'm actually making progress on unlocking a number of different vehicles all at the same time. And if I want to focus on a particular vehicle, I may have to change my playstyle up a little bit. All in all, it's a very interesting and unique progression system through the various tiers of vehicles. Now let's take a quick look at the other dealer, Sophie. Now I'm not progressing quite as quickly with Sophie. You'll notice that this is a fairly specific requirement. I have to get a certain amount of damage on top tier enemy vehicles in a match. Well, that's tricky, particularly if you're at the bottom of the ladder in some of the matches that you're in. And that would cause you to go hunting for top tier vehicles so that you could progress more quickly toward this goal. The pattern is pretty basic. You just got to earn reputation points with the vehicle's predecessor, which you can do through spotting targets, etc., etc. This one is, again, very specific. I've got 19 out of 30 enemy vehicles spotted during the first 5 minutes of the match while concealed. Now that's a fairly specific parameter that you would be striving for to unlock this vehicle. Now, often unintentionally, you will make progress in that direction just because of the way the match is playing out. But if you wanted to focus on it, it would affect how you played the other vehicles. I find that interesting. And then for the artillery, again, this is pretty basic. Just 21 out of 30 battles fought with Sophie's vehicles. I'm 9 battles away playing any of her vehicles before I unlock this artillery piece. And I forget what it is for the tank destroyers. Oh yes, you have to do damage at long range, more than 300 meters. Quite entertaining and unique to this game. I like that.
Driver cranking. Affirmative. Gunner, scan for target. Affirmative. Loader, ready up. Up. Driver, move out. Ammo, up.
One of the major and most important changes since the last focus test was the re-inclusion of artillery vehicles into the game. Now, some people, primarily World of Tanks players, have protested the inclusion of artillery as a player-controlled class of vehicles. This was reinforced by the fact that in the very first focus test, a placeholder set of mechanics was implemented to experiment with. It was very similar to how World of Tank handles artillery, and quite a few people ignored Obsidian Entertainment's insistence that this would not be its final form. For the second focus test, artillery was completely absent, while they gathered feedback from players as to what we would like to see in a player-controlled artillery game mechanic. Now it's back. At first glance, it doesn't appear to be that different. However, there are now some pretty significant changes under the hood. The first thing that will catch most players' attention is the inclusion of an easily visible warning that has been added to your HUD that alerts you when an incoming arty shell is headed your way.
Incoming!
The warning shows up the second the shell is fired, so depending on your distance from the artillery piece, you'll have anywhere from what could be a couple of seconds to several seconds before the actual impact. This allows you, if you're quick enough, to avoid part of or potentially all of the incoming damage. This directly addresses one of the main complaints about player-controlled artillery in other games. A feeling of frustration when you're killed or heavily damaged by a vehicle you can't see or retaliate directly against, and have absolutely no warning or chance to react to, except by perhaps camping behind hard cover, which is something we all want to avoid. Hard cover is still important, especially if you're spotted, and remember, you'll always get a warning in Armored Warfare when you're spotted. A special skill to gain that ability is unnecessary. Likewise, you'll always get the incoming shell alert. It's just up to you to move, zigzag, or dive for cover in a timely fashion, whichever is more appropriate. Of course, if the artillery player has correctly predicted your response, he may still hit you, or at least get you inside the blast radius so that you take partial damage from the hit. As I said, you'll always get that alert, but there is one exception to that rule. An artillery driver himself gets no such warnings, and for two reasons. Artillery duels tend to take place at extreme range. The enemy is in one corner of the map, and you're in the other, and that would give several seconds of warning before counter battery fire would actually hit. The second reason is this mechanic encourages, or lack of mechanic, encourages artillery duels, as other artillery players on the other team are your most unsuspecting targets. But that's not all. To further encourage arty versus arty gameplay, they have introduced a counter battery radar. Whenever an artillery piece fires, there's a ping that shows up on the minimap that is only visible to other arty players, although you can pass that information along to the rest of your team if you so choose. The first time that an artillery fires, it gives a ping in a very general location on that minimap, and the artillery piece itself that fired becomes briefly visible to everyone that has a line of sight on that location for about 10 seconds. Now, that's just the model itself, not the name over his head or the health bar. This gives an alert artillery player a chance of spotting the firing artillery piece in his top-down view as well. So it's wise to stay in some kind of concealment when you're firing if possible.
Target eliminated.
Each time that artillery piece fires from the same location, a smaller area of the map is pinged until on the third shot, that ping is almost directly on top of him. This makes it extremely easy for somebody who's trying to do an artillery duel to pinpoint your location. The end result? Well, finding a great spot to post up in your big artillery unit and rain death down on the enemy team is a sure way to draw counter battery fire. It forces a player to fire once or twice and then reposition. It also creates what is almost its own mini-game for the artillery players themselves, which is important. Obsidian wanted artillery gameplay to not only be less frustrating for the regular tank players, but also more entertaining and engaging for the artillery player themselves. This also lessens the time artillery has to freely fire at the rest of your team. Now, I just mentioned the top-down view that artillery drivers have. The standard satellite view, straight above, looking straight down, that you find in most games has been altered as well. Now it gives you a top-down view at the angle your shell will be approaching from. And this has advantages and disadvantages depending on the situation, but overall it's a more immersive experience for the artillery player, and it's a bit more restrictive also than a pure top-down view would be. The other core mechanics changes include capping the number of artillery pieces to 3 per side, which completely makes sense. Artillery spam is no fun for anyone. And to cap things off, artillery is now more accurate than you would typically find in other games. It has a faster aim time overall, but does less damage, with a fairly large splash radius. This is in part to make sure that an artillery player's actual skill has more of an impact than random chance does. But that also somewhat compensates for the new early warning system that the tankers will have. Overall, these changes make for a much more engaging experience for artillery players, and a much less frustrating experience for everyone else. One thing that I'm anxious to see that hasn't made it in-game yet are the proposed support shells that are being designed. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to the nature of these specialized shells, but I wouldn't be surprised to see smoke shells that can obscure a large area, or EMP shells that take out the markers on your minimap or interfere with designating targets. Perhaps flares that make everyone below them much more visible, or any number of other diabolical devices designed to indirectly assist your team as a whole, if they are employed correctly. This alone might make artillery players much more popular, even on their own teams. Now, I'd like to finish up with just a few snippets of actual gameplay that, well, some of it I'm the player, and in others I'm just observing some of the other members of my team and the enemy team. I spent most of my time this time around in artillery pieces because that's the main thing that I wanted to focus on. I think it's one of those critical pieces of this game that is going to have to be gotten right if the game is going to succeed. Now, this player is BL Doom. He's on a MBT-70. That's a Tier 6 premium tank. They unlocked a few for us to play around with and get a feel for. It's pretty much top of the line. And he's showing us right now that even a main battle tank, as slow as they are, can get to the back line, and even under heavy artillery fire, even at point-blank range, can take multiple incoming hits and hunt down artillery. And he is in the vehicle least suited for that task. He doesn't have the speed or the view range to be highly efficient at it, yet he had no trouble at all. He just pushed right on through. You have to remember, when you get hit by artillery now, it's not the end of the world. It does about as much damage as a main battle tank, it just has a bigger splash radius. It can be very handy to have an artillery piece supplementing your attack, but you should probably not make the mistake of depending on that artillery piece to do your job for you. For those of you who don't know what I'm getting at, you don't have to worry as much about artillery stealing your kill at the last minute. And as a side note, I've also noticed you don't have to worry as much about arty that you're trying to kill going all TD on you. It's doable, but it's not easy. Even under ideal circumstances like this, with a slower moving target, if he keeps moving back and forth, even hitting him isn't exactly easy. You have to predict where he's going to go. And if he proves himself to be unpredictable, you have a problem. Especially if you have an ally in the area. You have to hold your fire. You don't want to catch your ally in the splash damage.
Target down.
And there you go. Eventually, I tagged that guy. But it sure took up a lot of time for what otherwise could have been an easy kill. Had he hesitated and sat still for more than 3 or 4 seconds in any spot, though, I was in a precision artillery piece, and I could have hit him relatively easily, but he was a little too cagey for that. He knew what he was doing. It does keep the game interesting and fast-paced. But what really made him difficult to kill was the fact that he was so unpredictable. I never knew which way he was going to go next, unlike this fella here, who kept moving in a straight line and made himself a relatively easy target. But artillery aside, all of the classes of vehicles that I did take the time to play at a variety of tiers, all of them were fun one way or the other, including this premium tank, the M60A2 Starship, which is a pretty impressive vehicle, and it just looks cool as hell. But the main battle tanks like this, the tank destroyers, even the little scout armored fighting vehicles, the AFVs, or the light tanks, they were all enjoyable in different ways. They've got a good mix of vehicle strengths and weaknesses for the game to evolve around. And I think that is another critical component that they have gotten right. And if you can't tell already, I think they've nailed it with the artillery aspect as well. They've kept the parts of the artillery mechanic that work well, and they have eliminated the parts of the artillery mechanic that cause frustration or boredom. Toned it down to where it's not overpowered and it's not infuriating, and put a lot of action back into artillery gameplay for both the giving and the receiving end of the equation. All through the match we found nice little touches. Of course, they've always had excellent sound and atmospheric effects. When you're on a winter map like this, you feel like it's cold out and the wind is howling around you. When you're in a driving rainstorm, you feel like you're getting wet. And then nice, interesting touches like this. There's a French premium tank destroyer on the other side of this small building, having a standoff with our friend in the Starship here. Until finally, the tank destroyer gets tired of doing the dance and decides to see if he can punch a hole straight through the building and finish off the Starship. And what happens next? It's kind of neat. I didn't realize the buildings were destructible now. They brought the building down, but then that happened. Well, anyway, that's all I have for you for today. Until the next focus test, or until I see you again, good hunting. Thanks for watching. I hope you were entertained. If you liked the video, please remember to subscribe. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you. And I'll see you next time.